myself at all times, obey my commands at all times. Touch gloves. Good luck to both of you.
So, Teofimo Lopez against Arnold Barboza. New York against California in Times Square. Perfect confrontation. You saw the fan poll to Teofimo Lopez by 77% of Barboza, who is 32-0. A lot of people thought McComb was winning the fight.
Yeah, Jen, I think
At that Miami camp, he mentioned that he had barely edged out his last 3 fights, winning by close decisions like the one against McComb. But at the end of the day, a win is a win, especially when those 3 opponents were top-level fighters ranked near the top of their divisions. That's where the comparison to the 168 and 175-pound sensation David Benavidez comes in. He once had to cut down from well over 200 pounds, showing the discipline it takes to reshape himself into a world-class boxer. Day after day, hour after hour, boxing demands that kind of commitment. Both men step into the ring in tremendous shape, which is a testament to their dedication. As Jim pointed out, discipline is everything. Antonio Barboza has trained in some of the best gyms, producing top fighters. Early in the fight, we saw a sharp right hand from Barboza as both fighters traded punches, an exciting way to start. In Lopez's corner, his father gave clear instructions, reminding him of the importance of the jab to the body. It keeps your opponent at a distance and opens opportunities. Moments later, Lopez landed a solid right hand, the kind of shot he'll want to build on with combinations. The odds reflected the competitiveness Lopez entered as only a -260 favorite. Against Jermaine Ortiz and Steve Claggett, his previous defenses were already tight battles, and this one looked no different. The fight's pace wasn't overwhelming, but with sudden flurries and patient counterpunching from Barboza, it was shaping up to be a difficult one for the judges to score. The atmosphere was electric like the nonstop traffic of Times Square, but with all the energy focused on big-time boxing. In the middle of Times Square, the crowd was buzzing, and Lopez had already done enough to disrupt Barboza's rhythm. The early scorecards reflected it with Teo taking the first 2 rounds, which wasn't unexpected, but made the climb steeper for Barboza. As a boxer, Lopez just seemed a step ahead. Barboza had shown flashes before, like in the McComb fight, but Lopez's footwork and movement tonight were sharper than ever. Still, Barboza kept firing, landing a clean straight right and a counterhook, showing he wasn't backing down. The little feints and angles were giving Lopez problems at times, but then Teo would answer back with a hook of his own, reminding everyone of his power. Honestly, he hadn't looked this sharp in a long time. Even his sparring sessions in Miami didn't show this level of precision. Another counter right from Lopez, and by then, most scorecards already had him up 2 rounds to none or 2-1. Heading into round 4, the broadcast turned to Mike Tyson for his thoughts. Tyson noted how sharp Lopez looked, elusive, quick, and difficult to hit cleanly. To beat a guy like Teo, you've got to double up the shots, get inside, and make him stand still, Tyson said. He pointed out that Barboza wasn't as fluid or natural in his movements, and Lopez's talent edge was showing. Still, Barboza had been here before. He'd weathered fights where things weren't going his way and found a path back in. Mid-round, he tried to do just that, sneaking in an uppercut, though it came from too far out to land with real effect. Just last week, fans in England were treated to a sensational fight between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. That one stirred up plenty of debate, especially after years of trash talk on social media. Meanwhile, questions still linger from Devin Haney's last bout in Brooklyn against Ryan Garcia. There's a lot left to be answered there. Like Barboza, Haney has also trained in Big Bear, the same mountains where Gennady GGG Golovkin once built his legend. Tonight, though, the spotlight belongs to Teofimo Lopez, and he's looked razor-sharp from the opening bell. He's controlling the space, and that performance brings back memories of his upset win over Vasily Lomachenko. The referee reminded both fighters to keep their heads up as they clashed inside, but Lopez continued to show poise, landing clean shots while Barboza tried to press forward. Swelling had already begun to build under Barboza's right eye, and it was only getting worse as the rounds wore on. On the cards, he was almost certainly behind. Lopez kept finding a home for that 1-2 combination, cracking Barboza again and again with precise timing. His defense was tight, his counterpunching sharp, and he was clearly in rhythm. "He's in his bag right now," one commentator noted. With 10 seconds left in the round, Lopez even flashed a little showmanship, bouncing into a dance step and playing to the crowd, a sign of just how confident he felt in control of the fight. In the corner, Lopez's father urged him to keep using the jab, reminding him, "You're better than him." Between rounds, the broadcast once again turned to Mike Tyson for perspective. Tyson praised Lopez's form. "He's just looking good, smart, fast, sharp." Asked about training camps, Tyson explained that fighters usually hit their true rhythm 2/3 of the way through camp. By then, every moment in the ring is fought at full intensity, and you get so accustomed to fighting that the flow just carries into the match. "Thank you, Mike." The broadcast shifted back to the action, with Tyson's words lingering about Cus D'Amato, the legendary trainer who guided Floyd Patterson to Olympic gold and later shaped Mike himself. Lopez, in that moment, looked every bit the natural talent, gliding across the ring with confidence. Barboza, for all his grit, simply didn't have the same fluidity. Coming into the fight undefeated at 32-0, Barboza knew he needed a momentum shift, and in round 6, he nearly found it. A counter right hand landed flush, buckling Lopez's legs and drawing a roar from the crowd. "That one hurt him," Antonio called out. It was the cleanest punch Barboza had landed all night, and for the first time, Lopez looked shaken. That single shot was hard to ignore, and the judges might have seen it the same way. For many at ringside, it marked Barboza's first clear round of the fight. But Lopez recovered quickly. By the end of the frame, he had settled back into his rhythm, his body language confident again, waiting patiently to counter as Barboza tried to press forward. Another sharp right hand from Lopez, followed by an overhand that caught Barboza clean, reopened the gap between them. Meanwhile, swelling around Barboza's left eye worsened with every exchange. Experience showed. Lopez was mixing in subtle wrinkles, adjusting his pace and angles, while Barboza struggled to find consistent success. He tried to pressure, then switched to countering, but against a quicker opponent those tactics only went so far. The variation just wasn't there. Lopez stayed composed on the ropes, slipping and moving rather than covering up, reminding everyone that even when tested, he remained a level above. Lopez was making Barboza miss with nearly every punch, showing sharp defense and composure. Earlier in his career, Lopez admitted he didn't dominate Eric Harden the way he wanted to, but tonight was a different story. It's worth noting that many critics have called for Teo to part ways with his father as trainer, yet the advice coming from the corner tonight has been sharp, measured, and effective. That's the double edge of being trained by your father. There are clear pros and cons, but few know a fighter better. Lopez thrives on rhythm, and when he finds it, he's difficult to disrupt. Some argue he's more grit and determination than pure rhythm, but either way, it's working. Barboza has beaten fighters with more natural talent before, but Lopez isn't standing still long enough to give him that chance. Fighting under the lights in Times Square, Teo was living up to the moment, mixing in strong body shots and commanding the pace. Tensions between the two fighters had been simmering for months. At the press day, Lopez stared down Barboza with intensity, and it wasn't long ago in Los Angeles that he even slapped him across the face, adding fuel to the rivalry. Now, in the ring, he was showing why that confidence mattered. "Keep using your jab, and let's start breaking this guy down," his father urged in the corner as the late rounds approached. At ringside, a familiar face stood out: Neil Leifer, the legendary photographer whose iconic images have defined boxing history. Even after decades of covering the sport, he was there capturing this moment as Lopez began pressing harder, looking like a man determined to close the show. Barboza has to keep his hands up, no question about it. If he's going to turn this fight around and look respectable in the late rounds, he needs to take chances. On this card alone, there are 4 or 5 names floating around the conversation at 147, but when people talk about the very best in that division, it usually comes down to Terence Crawford, and there aren't many rushing to face him. The question is where Teofimo Lopez fits in that mix. Antonio was asked how Lopez might fare against someone like Jaron Boots Ennis, and the response was that Lopez isn't as physically imposing as Crawford at welterweight, but he's sharp, disciplined, and capable of breaking opponents down. Lopez continued to prove it, pumping out the jab, landing a hard right hand, then another, keeping Barboza off balance. Some doubt still lingers from his fight with George Kambosos, a night when Lopez was dropped twice late and struggled to recover. But tonight, it's clear Barboza's best chance isn't to outbox Lopez, it's to exchange. Barboza has a proven chin, and even though he isn't known as a power puncher, he already stunned Lopez once with a counter right. His only real path is to let his hands go, create action, and hope to land something big.